If you're feeling like a lump on a log, or meaner than a junkyard dog, you've got questions, well I do too. Come on and join the solution revolution. There's answers for me and you. Yeah, there's answers that we can use. Come on and join the solution revolution.
Welcome back, everyone. It's good to have you here. My name is Leo Battenhausen, and you've tuned back into Mender Online, the Solution Revolution on YouTube channel. I have a very, very special guest with me today. His name is John Kelly. He's been my partner in crime and other things for over the past 20 years. Not only is John a friend and a colleague of mine, but he's an addiction specialist. He has founded and is still the clinical director of Extra Care Health Services here in New Jersey, which specializes in addiction treatment and has been doing so extremely well since its inception, I think about 20 years ago as well. And John is the first person to treat the family of addicts, as far as I know, and have them be participants in the treatment to better the family situation and get the addict what they need to get better. So John is an addiction specialist, therapist. He's also currently a criminal profiler and has been for some time. John, you may recognize from Investigation Discovery's show Dark Minds, which aired for 3 years. John was the criminal profiler on that show. This Wednesday, he's going to be back on the identification ID channel's Killer U. So he's also being consulted there for his expertise in murderers and killers, which fascinates me. So that's on this Wednesday night on Investigation Discovery, and we wish him well on that. John has been on many interviews for his expertise and knowledge, both on addiction and serial killers. He's been on Jane Velez Mitchell's show, Nancy Grace's show, 2020, 60 Minutes. I think the list goes on, but he's a very sought-after expert in this field. So we're lucky to have him. And I also want to mention real quick that John is the first one who penned the term serial killer and addiction. Back in 1995, he had a paper written where he put the connection between alcohol and serial killers together. And in about 2007, that was confirmed by a Dr. Morrison. So John was right some 12 years earlier, and that's really fascinating. And John has come a very long way. He is in recovery, which he has allowed me to say and share with you, and he's nothing to be ashamed of. He has been very successful since his recovery days back in way back when. So I'm pleased to have him on here, and we're going to talk about depression and addiction today, and a little bit about serial killers. So enough. I could go on and on talking about you, John. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mind Mender. How are you?
Leo, I'm doing terrific. How are you? And thank you so much for having me.
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day here in New Jersey. And,
yeah, it's a little overcast up here, but still in all, we're expecting a nice day tomorrow. Okay. I want to really commend you on your show. I mean, I think it's really going. It's taking off now, but I mean, eventually, I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
Well, that's the hope, John, and I really appreciate that. And it seems to be catching on. We want to give people, as you know, and as you and I have done in our work, we want to give people the real deal, and not fabricate. We want to give them real answers and real solutions. And, I'm happy to have you here because you are one of those people who has helped me learn over the years real solution and real therapy. And this is really an honor. So, welcome aboard.
I'll tell you couldn't have coined that phrase any better, the solution revolution, because I'll tell you, if there's something that's really needed out there, it is solutions. And, the old saying goes, there's no problems, only solutions.
Yeah.
Well, the most important thing is to bring the solutions to the forefront. And you're doing that. You're doing it on the radio, on Relevant Radio.
Yeah.
You're doing it on YouTube. You're doing it all over. You're doing it in your private practice. and you're giving people really hands-on expertise and advice interwoven into very practical solutions. I mean, it's, as you've written, the common sense way to get better.
Well, that's it. They're really.
That pretty much says it all,
Thanks. Yeah, we want to just make it very simple. People want solutions when they go in for therapy or help. They don't want to hear, what I call psychobabble and nonsense. But, we've been talking about depression on Mind Mender over the past few weeks, John. And, I know you're in recovery. And I wanted to see, what do you think? Well, first, let's start with addiction. I'm, speaking firsthand, because I can only say that I've worked with people that have addictions over the years. What do you think is the cause of this? Like, where does it come from? What's the main? Well, nobody sets out to be an addict, right? That's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a little 11-year-old boy or a 12-year-old girl sitting on their bed and fantasizing and dreaming about what they want to be when they get older.
Right.
And, there's just no way some young child is going to be fantasizing about growing up and becoming an addict and enslaved to alcohol or other drugs.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a situation, I think, that has many precursors. It can be one, it can be a number. I think it's like trying to say in a way, what's the cause of cancer? Something I think we should get back to a little later as you focus on depression. I mean, you are the premier therapist on depression. To me, depression is like cancer of the mind, if you will.
Yeah, sure. Good way to put it.
When I look at addiction, I look at something that went amiss somewhere in childhood, and a big focus of mine has been low self-esteem.
That's true. I know that.
Low self-esteem has a lot of different tentacles. You're talking about insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about inadequacy. You're talking about inferiority. And a lot of this can be set up through a traumatic childhood. Now, we know that when we work with a lot of addicts, and keep in mind, I say low self-esteem is the beginning of addiction. I don't say it's the beginning of use. Or the beginning of abuse, I say it's
okay, you're right.
Because when a person gets to that point where they've crossed over from use or abuse, whatever you want to call it, to non-stop using, an inability to control themselves, where they are enslaved by the drug, whatever it might be, and become addicted, well, there is just no way that they can have a good self-esteem and have good care about themselves, because even though there's a lot of narcissism that surrounds addiction, and certain addicts would consider themselves, towering over others with their egos and be kind of egomaniacs.
Would you
Bottom line is that you can't have a good self-esteem and your behavior is self-destructive.
Right.
They don't go together. So even though really heavy-duty narcissism could be your camouflage, your behavior and what people see is what's really going on with you. When they see the self-destructive behavior taking you towards death and the things you're doing to get your drug, there's no way you can have really a good self-esteem. You have to have a low self-esteem. The interesting piece to this is that we know egomania and inferiority can coexist. I think it was Alfred Adler that said, you show me somebody who is superior, who thinks they're superior, and I'll show you someone who's inferior as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they can coexist. Mm-hmm. But I truly believe low self-esteem created in childhood is the fuse that's being lit, that's leading towards addiction. Now, also, too, we cannot completely turn around and say that there is not a genetic connection or a genetic predisposition. But Leo, here's something that I ran into many, many years ago. And it's something that nobody has come up with an answer for. 50%, and this is where this genetic predisposition came from. As the research were doing research on alcoholics, they found that 50% of all alcoholics had alcoholism somewhere in their family.
Really?
Right?
50?
And keep in mind, alcohol is a central nervous system depressant.
Right.
Well, then we got hit with the cocaine plague of the 80s. I mean, the cocaine epidemic in the 80s was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I never thought I would see, just jumping ahead a heroin epidemic going on today that would be worse than the cocaine epidemic of the 80s, but obviously it is for various reasons. But when the researchers went back and they started to research cocaine addicts, they found out that 96% of cocaine addicts had alcoholism in the family. Now, where this becomes controversial is because, as I mentioned earlier, alcohol, and as you know, is a central nervous system depressant.
Yep.
But cocaine is a central nervous system stimulant. So why are these cocaine addicts, why are they not, if they have 96% alcoholism in their family tree, why are they not gravitating towards a central nervous system depressant versus a stimulant?
That's a very good question, isn't it?
And nobody's ever answered it.
Huh.
So, and this question is being highlighted on your show right now. Because it's never been answered.
Let's talk about that. That's really interesting, and I didn't know that either. So
It's never been answered. It's something that's been hanging out there and something I've been looking at for years. So this again concerns me about just focusing on the genetic predisposition. And the other thing you and I know from all the work we've done is that even when we work with someone and they're able to become sober and go into recovery, usually, always underneath are the issues. They may not come up for a year or a year and a half or 2 years later, but I mean, how many clients have you had come back and say, listen, I'm in recovery, but I can't have a relationship or something?
Oh, yeah, it's a revolving door in most cases, John.
Yeah.
What do you think, what makes the success, though? You are successful in recovery, and there is success in recovery. What do you think people need? I mean, what's the formula for success? Maybe that's a very broad question. Maybe it's different for different people, but we know you need to want to be so clean and sober. You have to really, really want it. But some people, the recovery rate is very low, and success rate of treatment can be very low. But what makes that difference for people who actually make it out of it?
Well, you're absolutely correct. I think number one, you have to want it.
Right.
And you have had to hit your bottom or your rock bottom or whatever you want to call it.
Can I just say one thing too, real quick, John,
sure.
for the viewers? A lot of people I speak with, and families especially, they're trying to tell their child or their spouse or their loved one, just you have to stop, you have to stop, you have to stop. That's not helpful, right? It can't be helpful.
Well, it's not helpful because if it's taken as criticism,
Right.
criticism, is another form of rejection, which is another form of abandonment.
And when you're talking about low self-esteem, there's another nail in that, system, right?
Another nail in the coffin.
Right.
And my suggestion is that any family members, and my God, do we have them out there? We talk about how many addicts there are out there in the United States. Now you can't compare with all the family members that are connected to these addicts that are out there.
Yeah.
And these family members need treatment themselves. They need to be educated. And if they are educated, and I would suggest they go to Al-Anon or Nar-Anon along with being in therapy.
Right.
Because the therapist is the educator, the professional. Okay, Al-Anon, Nar-Anon are very good support groups, and you can learn a lot there. But there's nothing like a really good professional that knows what they're doing to add on to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that families have to be in the know.
Well, that's what you've always.
Educated, and they have to learn what to do. Just say no, or you got to stop that,
Right.
or just stop it. You can't be doing that. I mean, that's not going to work, especially when somebody's addicted.
Right.
The drug
exactly.
is always going to win. The drug is always going to come first. When you become sincerely addicted, you don't have to think anymore. That drug will do all your thinking for you.
Yeah.
It will tell you when to eat, when to sleep, when to have sex, when to lie, when to cheat, when to steal. You become a slave to the drug. And your whole life evolves around it. And it can be alcohol.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Sure.
I've seen people whose lives evolved around the bottle. And today it's much more complicated, and there's much more addicting and dangerous drugs out there.
Yeah.
But it can be. It's pretty much, you can pick your poison. And something, I heard on the radio show, your show, you brought up an excellent point on Relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking on there about feeling alive, that the person was, continuing to be addicted to the trauma, Leo,
Yes.
which was excellent. That point you brought up was excellent.
Yeah, so thank you.
That was allowing them to feel alive. And there's a big part of me that believes, from a recovering standpoint and from a professional standpoint, that when you're walking around with all this insecurity, inferiority, and you're feeling inadequate, or one or all of the three, that once you get that uninhibitor in you, it makes you feel alive.
Well, isn't that the problem? Because I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always thought that there's no addict that's not at least depressed underneath the addiction.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, you have to be.
And I'll even share personally that even into 2 years of recovery from all substances, maybe not cigarettes, smoking cigarettes, okay.
Yeah, we got to leave that one alone, John.
The bottom line is that I took my butt off to a therapist and paid a lot of money back in the early 80s to deal with my depression. Because even though I put the substance down, the bottom line was the depression was still there, and it was still being fueled by feelings of insecurity, inferiority, that followed me from my childhood. Leo, you can take these feelings and you can bury them. And you can bury them with booze, you can bury them with cocaine, you can bury them with heroin, you can bury them with whatever you want. Well, you and I both know, when you bury them alive.
You're
and
right.
There's going to be a day of reckoning.
You are absolutely
it
right.
10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, if you stop the substance that's suppressing them, these feelings you've buried alive are going to come to the surface.
Well, that is just so true. And that's, I think, don't you think, the treatment is the really important part here. Because if you're going to put the drug down or the substance down or whatever it is down, and those feelings start coming back up again, I think after a certain amount of time and years, the addict loses their coping mechanisms because they're using the drug or the drink to cope, correct? Like to hide all the things and cover it all up. But when you take that away, if you're not, like you just said, getting the help and treatment and addressing those needs, they're going to come right back, all their fangs and claws out, and you're going to want to go pick up again.
Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly, because you're living in torment.
Yeah, well put.
You deal with these inadequate and negative feelings. Let's just focus on calling them negative feelings.
Yeah.
We can call them, thought distortions, cognitive distortions, thoughts to create these feelings. But the bottom line is you're dealing with this negativity that's eating at you inside. People, use the word demons on TV a lot.
Yes,
he had to deal with his demons. He couldn't overcome his demons. Let's put, another word on demons. And it's really, negative thinking. And what do you have at depression? I mean, depression, the fundamentals of depression are pretty much based on, a negative thought process. I mean, depression, and why I call it cancer of the mind, is because it's progressive, and it just keeps eating away at you, these thoughts, and they just snowball, and they just get worse to the point where you can't tolerate it, and this is why people kill themselves. I mean, depression's goal is to progress and eventually get you to destroy yourself.
And that's really important for people to understand. It needs to be addressed because you're right. It will take you down in the end. We're hearing about this outburst of depression these days. If it's real or not, I'm not sure. But, by 2020, the World Health Organization says the second highest medically diagnosed problem in this world will be depression. And that's just so hard to believe, but the numbers are there, and I just don't understand it. I don't think any of us do. So, this is an epidemic here. And we're seeing epidemics of the heroin abuse, like you brought up before. And that's a whole nother bag of worms that I never thought would come to pass either. That was always I'd never touch heroin. That was always the mantra of people who smoked pot or did drugs or anything else. But lo and behold, here it is. And people are dying over this stuff, accidentally and probably intentionally.
We've got like 46,000 people overdosing a year now, which is now more younger people than die in car accidents.
Yes.
I mean, more younger people than commit suicide. I mean, it's just off the rails. But getting back to the depression.
Yeah.
I mean, you are right on with it. Okay, you know exactly what to do with it. You've had so many people come to see you that have been severely depressed with them. I'm honored to be a colleague of yours. You've done great work for over 20 years.
Thank you.
And I've got to tell you that it's taken on a new leg. Like you said, it's moving more into an epidemic that's engulfing the country. And what's really bothering me is depression is so lethal. Not only can it lead you down the road to suicide and any kind of self-destructive behavior, but suicide being the most self-destructive behavior.
Of course.
Depression also, as you know, and you brought up on a couple of your shows, is, a major precursor to heart disease.
Yep, we know that now too.
Now, let me tell you something. If it doesn't get you one way, it can get you the other.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's leading and a major cause, or the major cause of heart disease, and it's the leading cause of suicide, because you're pretty much not going to kill yourself if you like yourself, so
So that's,
you
yeah.
have to be to the point where you don't like yourself anymore, and you feel hopeless and worthless. And how can you have a good self-esteem if you're feeling hopeless and worthless, right?
Exactly.
You're going to get rid of yourself. So, I think people need to come together and take a look at this. Now, something else you brought up that's very interesting, and it's in your book, Social Side. And you brought up about, people spending all these hours in front of the computers
yes.
and online
Yep.
and with other devices. Well, the other part of that, too, is, and you brought this up a number of occasions, there's a certain stimulation of dopamine, tryptophan, serotonin, norepinephrine, okay?
Yeah.
So you get these brain chemicals in the reward center of the brain that are stimulated. But the problem is, after they're stimulated, just like with Coke or something else, then they end up becoming depleted.
Exactly.
Leo, I'll tell you, if we took a human being and we just depleted those neurotransmitters through booze, Coke, heroin, or screen time, as you say, which in social say, you bring this up, the bottom line is a person will become, biologically depressed.
So that's probably, that's got to be feeding into this epidemic of depression, John.
I agree with you.
Right? The technology dependence in this world is just, it's sickening to me, but that has to be part of the problem, if not the problem. We've never seen anything like this.
No.
And then since...
Talk about, because you know it better than I do, Leo, if you would just talk about the liking and this and that stimulates the various neurotransmitters.
Oh, sure. Well, we're talking about Facebook there. People are very addicted to Facebook. I'm a frequent flyer, I have to admit it. I don't feel like I'm addicted, but there are people that are always on Facebook, and, they post their pictures, their selfies, the pictures of themselves, pictures of their trips, pictures of their house being redone. And if people start hitting that little like button, the more likes they get, the more stimulated they get, and the more the transmitters in the brain get stimulated as well. Like, look at me. This is all artificial, though, stimulation of our natural antidepressants, and we become dependent on those things because of the computer. Why didn't that person like me? Or why didn't they like this? I get so many questions from clients. He didn't like this, but he liked it on this girl's Facebook page, and they have these wars of communication on Instagram and Facebook and I don't know what other Twitter, Twacker. But this is the reality. And if you're not getting that constant feed of instant gratification via the computer or your cell phone, you're not getting the dopamine back where it needs to belong, because it's false dopamine, okay? And like you said, it's depleted, and like with an addict and with people like that are depressed, that's the major problem, is the resources of our natural antidepressants get depleted too quickly, so we feel all out of sorts and angry, anxious, sad. There's a whole lot of different things depression covers, and depression's really not a good word for what it is, but that's what it is. But yeah, the Facebook dependency and social media, let's put it that way, dependency, is truly overwhelming, and how people are communicating today has to lead to that. We're not created to have relationships like this, John. You know that. We weren't made this way, but we do it, and it does take away from what we should be doing, which is being around other people and being active with our families and friends. And if we're not doing that, we're not living a normal life. So we're going to feel something's wrong, even on an unconscious level, which leads to depression as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And if you think about it, and you know about these better than I do, this is more your specialty, but you look at these different antidepressant drugs.
Yeah, well,
they are made to create various neurotransmitters. You know, serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine. I mean, so obviously, if these work to a certain extent with some people, that means that the person's reservoir of said chemical, said neurotransmitter, regardless of what it is, has been depleted. Now, I know, how I depleted mine through chemicals.
Yeah.
You know, and certainly, how I restored them and restored my reservoir, by staying away from chemicals, not depleting them, and eating right and taking a lot of nutritional supplements to rebuild. Thank God.
Well, that's how it works, John.
That I was able to, had enough brains left to research this and, make myself whole again as best I could.
Well, that's how it works because, when you're right, when we're depressed, our reserves are depleted, or they're very slow to replenish themselves. And if we're using substances, or have an addiction problem of some sort, the brain is fooled into thinking, I don't have to do this because the substances are doing it for me. So therein lies the even slower replenishing of the serotonin. Even pot will deplete your serotonin, and it takes.
Absolutely.
And it will come back. That's the good news. If you get off of it and you do things for yourself, you have to do things for yourself that naturally replenish the serotonin.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is medically or clinically indicated where antidepressants are necessary. And all they do, John, is shrink up the reuptake tubes in the neurotransmitters. So the resources, the real stuff stays put. That tube can get very wide and it gets sucked up too fast. So that's what the antidepressants do. They shrink up that reuptake tube to keep the reserves in where they are. Now, if you're taking antidepressants and still using drugs, you're wasting your time and money on these pills.
and probably setting yourself up to maybe, dying, having a heart attack or a seizure or something.
Correct. So it's multifaceted stuff, but we do make the connection here with depression and alcohol and substance abuse and all kinds of addiction, and we're going to see more and more of it, John. What do you think? And I know a lot of people ask this too. What about like inpatient treatment? We know here in New Jersey, it's not the best. It's not good at all, the inpatient treatment, because of a lack of time. Insurance companies allow. That's really the main problem. Isn't, the longer the stay, the better the chance, or is that just a myth?
Well, you know what? That is an excellent question. Can I take a break for a minute?
Yes.
And get back to you?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to keep talking.
I'll be right back.
Thanks, John. So I'm really glad to have John here, folks. He's a wealth of information, and he's been around the block many times, but. What he's saying does make sense, and what we're talking about here makes sense. But we all have so many questions. Either we're getting, not getting the answers we need. We're trying to help our loved ones. We're trying to help ourselves. But little gets done when we don't have the right information, which, of course, is frustrating and can feel like nothing is working. And that doesn't help anything either. So In any case, it's a big issue. And I'll be right back.